Have you heard some of the completely unexplainable stories about the moon? Welcome to Hollow Moon Theory. Hear me out, it sounds completely ridiculous until you look into it a little bit further. I'm not saying I believe in this theory 100%, but I'm just going to explain the facts of it and why people believe in it. So the idea is the moon is either just naturally hollow, or that it's somehow a hollowed out structure that was intentionally placed into Earth's orbit a few thousand years ago. And whoever those advanced engineers were that placed it here did it not only to influence Earth's biology, but also to oversee and control the inhabitants of Earth. Bear with me, this is some crazy interesting stuff. So NASA researcher Robert Brett has a quote about the moon. It seems easier to explain the non-existence of the moon than it does to explain its existence. Many believe he said this because 1, the moon appears to be millions of years older than Earth, and 2, because no other planet in our solar system has a natural satellite that is 1/4 the size of the planet. To put in perspective, if the moon was proportional to Earth like other moons, it would be 30 miles across. But our moon is 72 times larger than that at 2,160 miles across. Another strange thing about the moon is its craters. So the different size of craters on the moon would mean they would have different impact forces, which would lead you to believe they would have variations in depth. But instead, the craters all have the same depth for some reason. What's even weird is whenever astronauts drilled into the craters, they were barely able to penetrate the surface, and they found processed metals like brass that is not a naturally occurring element. Another strange thing about the moon is the tidal lock. Tidal lock means the moon's rotation exactly matches its orbit, which makes us only allowed to see one side of it at all times. It never lets us see the dark side of the moon. Throughout our universe, almost everything spins, and since Earth spins, many say that it should cause the moon to counterspin, but instead it always faces us. Another thing astronomers say is extremely unlikely is for a planet's moon to appear the exact same size as the sun during an eclipse. What's also very strange is that natural satellites circulate planets around the equator, but our moon circulates at 5 degrees, which is the exact distance, elevation, course, and speed that it needs to cause tidal flow in the seasons on Earth. So after looking at all of this, it appears that the moon is older, bigger, and weighs less than it should. I don't know about you, but I haven't learned about any of this until recently, but there's a lot of ancient civilizations across the world that refer to a time before the moon. Well-known Greek philosophers such as Aristotle and Plutarch actually refer to this. Also, Columbian legends refer to the early times the moon was not yet in the heavens. And the Zulu tribe in Africa tells the legend that the moon is an egg with the yolk removed and that it was brought from far away by non-terrestrial dragons into orbit. They said that when it was brought, it caused a great cataclysm and a great flood that nearly wiped out all of humanity. So this is all super interesting so far, but let me get into the part where people think that it's hollow. So between 1969 and 1977, seismometers on the moon recorded the moonquakes during the Apollo missions. In November 1969, Apollo 12 sent their lunar module crashing down to the moon, which created an artificial earthquake around 40 miles from their seismic devices. Their devices recorded the crash and said that the moon rang like a bell for 40 minutes. When this happened, it was so unbelievable that NASA decided to hit the moon with an even heavier rocket. So Apollo 13's module struck the moon with a force equivalent to 11 tons of TNT. And this time, the seismic equipment was about 100 miles from the crash site. And according to NASA, the moon rang like a gong again for a full 3 hours within the 1.25 mile radius of the landing. When you consider the perfect placement, geometry, shallow craters, non-naturally occurring metal, locked orbit, and hollow reverberation, you can see why so many have come to believe the Earth is hollow or even an artificial satellite. There's obviously a lot more to the story that we don't know. So before the first moon landing, the Apollo 10 mission flew around the moon and saw the dark side of the moon for the first time. The astronauts said that they heard strange whistling sounds, and they described eerie outer space type music that was nothing like they had ever heard before. These sounds were very similar to the sound Cassini's space probe recorded inside of Saturn's rings. What's weird is NASA dismissed the strange sound that the Apollo 10 guys heard as radio waves interacting with the magnetic field of the moon. But the problem is the moon doesn't have a magnetic field. I'm not an astronomer and I'm not a physicist, but these are a lot of coincidences. Do whatever you want with this information. Obviously we're paranoid, but just because we're paranoid doesn't mean we're not being watched. Thank you for watching, and if you liked it, hit the like button and subscribe. Have a great day.